In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Daily Memphian's Tigers podcast. I'm Parth Upadhyaya, the Daily Memphian's Tigers basketball beat writer, and I'm joined by John Martin, the DM's Tigers college sports columnist. Got a lot to get to today. Obviously, big win for the Tigers against UAB, convincing win, something that many folks have been waiting to see for weeks now. But first, before we dig into all of that, don't forget to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts at. You can also listen to these episodes and read all of our Tiger sports coverage at dailymemphian.com. Now let's jump right in. John, how you doing?
Doing great, man. Obviously, it was a fantastic week for Memphis basketball. I think a week that, more so a game, I guess, against UAB that Memphis fans were definitely, yearning to see, an effort that they were, really clamoring for. And I think Memphis is kind of, reinforced, right, that when they have a game that matters, that is meaningful, you're going to get their best. That doesn't mean they're going to win every time, but you're going to get their best punch. And it was certainly more than enough against this UAB, this underwhelming UAB team. They shot, 65% from two, did Memphis. I mean, it was just a wire-to-wire beatdown. And I think it definitely showed that Memphis is the class of this league. They already beat North Texas in their only meeting this year. They're in prime position, obviously, to win this league, and that's what Memphis fans have wanted to see, and I think what Memphis fans are going to get.
Is there any explanation for this except for the fact that this team's just more motivated against teams it feels threatened by? You look at what Memphis did against, Temple, where they take a loss, or East Carolina and North Texas. North Texas is a good team, but still, they only won by 4, right? And then Wichita State, you struggle. And you struggle really every game after FAU. They beat FAU by 28 points on the road in Boca Raton. And you struggle for 5 straight games. And all of a sudden, UAB, you turn it right back on. And you're the world beater that we saw, in South Florida against FAU. Same type of performance that you saw against Ole Miss and UConn and so on and so forth. What's the reasoning behind this? How can a team just go from looking like, let's face it, crap at times against Wichita State, against ECU, against Temple, to a team that could really make some noise come March? Yeah,
and then listen, I would say it's all relative too. I mean, they did beat Wichita State. They did beat East Carolina. They lost to Temple. I mean, we can nitpick and say, they underperformed. They didn't win by 20, but I mean, North Carolina Duke was trailing NC State by 12 at home. On
That's
Monday
one
night.
game, though.
I understand that, but I mean, the point is, when you get in conference, that Duke should win that game by, they were 21.5 point favorites.
They were.
Right? I mean, that was an underperform. So you're going to have that, right? It's not just a thing that Memphis deals with in college basketball. These are kids still, 21-year-olds. So, we're not talking about NBA players here. You're going to have spotty efforts. But yeah, I think it's just the human nature. I think it's just the essence of the sport, right? It's what makes it great, is that, it kind of is. It's like, it's up to interpretation, from anybody, not just Memphis, but, you don't know what kind of effort you're going to get night to night. I mean, obviously the best teams, right? That's why Arizona gets up and they beat Iowa State with that huge three that he from
Caleb Love, man.
Wow. I mean, you get up for those games, right? Especially at home. And the ones that are, underwhelming and just not going anywhere, and there's no juice. Attendance this year has been underwhelming as well. That doesn't help. So I think it's just a matter of, the marquee of the event. And it makes me feel better about Memphis as a tournament team, because you don't get slop in the tournament. You don't get ECU. You don't get Tulsa.
First round, you might get, a 13 seed or a 12 seed.
But it's the tournament, though, right? If you lose, you're gone. It's over. So I trust and totally believe that this Memphis team, what are they, they're going to the tournament. They're not going to lose enough games at this point, it feels like,
to not make the field.
Yeah. So, I think they put themselves in a great position. And look, even if they win the league, and I said this last time we did the show, they're going to win this league.
Yeah.
It's still going to be a joke league. That's not going to change. But at least Memphis will be the champion. they will rule their empire of dirt.
Yeah, no, they will. And I think if you're a Tigers fan or if you're media, if you're being hypercritical on this team, then what you want to see is that same effort that they put up against UAB for the rest of these 11 games, because that's what's going to move the needle, right? In terms of metrics, in terms of eye tests, in terms of like not only winning a crap league, but dominating a crap league, like being, the Gonzaga, not this year's Gonzaga, but Gonzaga of years past. What Gonzaga is to its conference, being that same sort of dominant team in this, watered down AAC. Is that possible though? Now you go to Tulane, right? On the road where you struggled historically in recent years. You go to Rice where there will be 10 people, at Tudor Fieldhouse.
Exactly.
It's going to be tough.
You're one of the 10.
And I'll be one of the 10. Exactly. What do you foresee happening in this next 2-game road trip?
Yeah.
Do you think this juice that Memphis now all of a sudden has, is it going to be sustained, or is it just going to be spilled down the drain come Tulane game on Thursday?
Yeah, I actually think these two are pretty easy to get up for because that you lost to Tulane there last year, right? And I think that kind of worked for Memphis against FAU. First conference game, you lost down there last year. Even though it's not the same team per se, it's still the same head coach, and it's easy to kind of get that point across. We can't lose to Tulane. We've lost down here too much.
Yep.
And then Rice beats you in Memphis, right?
One of the worst losses in program history, arguably.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a dark, dark night when Rice beat Memphis. And so I think these two specifically are actually pretty easy to get up for. I mean, they only have, 6 road games the rest of the way.
Yeah.
These are 2 of the 6. But I actually feel pretty confident given, again, I think last year kind of helps you here because you have that, in the end, your job is kind of like, it's almost like you're in the Army, right? You have to engage. You have to get these guys engaged. And it's pretty easy, as bad as those teams are, but it's pretty easy to say, hey, listen.
To pin a narrative to each one.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, exactly right. I mean, you got to kind of be able to weave a story a little bit, right? Like that's part of the motivation.
Tell your story. Yeah.
And if it's UTSA, on the road.
PJ Carter revenge game.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, he's playing more.
He's playing good ball. Man.
But if it's a team like that, East Carolina there, that's a little different. But with those two teams specifically and what last year kind of meant for you, I think you can find a way to get the guys ready to go for this one.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the next 6, right? You got Tulane, which you said that Memphis has struggled in recent years in that building, in Devlin Fieldhouse, Fogelman Arena, whatever. Rice, who beat you at home last year. Tulsa, where PJ Haggerty comes from, right? It's like, so that's an obvious angle there. Temple, who beat you in Philadelphia. South Florida, who was the class of the league last year. And then Wichita State, who, didn't beat you, but came damn close. At home. So those next 6 each have a narrative attached to them. And I think you're right. Like the Tigers can get up, for those games emotionally.
Get up!
Motivationally.
You know what I mean?
I didn't get that reference. What's that?
That's, oh man, I think it's James Brown, man. Get on up. Am I 50 years old? My goodness. But yeah, I mean, I'll never do that again. It is James Brown.
It is. Okay.
Anyway, don't let my pop culture genius get in the way of a great point, Parth, that you made. Yeah. Which is that, yes, I mean, this is a week that on the surface you look at it, you're like, okay, what are these quad 3, quad 4?
Quad 3 and quad 4, yes, I believe.
Even though on the surface that's what it is, within that, you can sort of spin that narrative and make these games feel a little bit more important than they probably would feel otherwise.
No doubt. Obviously, one big change that happened leading up to UAB was the Dane Danger reinsertion into the starting lineup for Moussa Cisse. Penny had talked about it for a few days leading up to it. I asked him on, I guess it would be Wednesday before the Wichita State game, if he would make this move, if that would help the slow starts. And he said that he had talked to Moussa Cisse for weeks, about this being on the horizon, right?
Yeah.
Like this being kind of imminent, that when he thought Dane would be ready in terms of stuff he wanted to see from Dane. And he wanted to see Dane run the floor better and shot block better and rebound better. And when Dane checked those boxes behind the scenes in practice, he would then reward him by giving him the starting nod. That's what we saw, or that's what Penny saw rather happen behind the scenes. And that's what we saw happen leading up to the UAB game. And Dane, proved Penny right that,
Yeah.
hey, that was the right move. 21 points, 10 of 12 shooting, 8 rebounds, 1 assist in only 25 minutes. What'd you see different? What'd you see that was different from the Memphis offense with Dane Danger at center instead of Mrs.
Yeah, I thought, we had talked about it on the show. We kind of said, listen, your defense is not really the problem, with this team. When you run into issues with Memphis basketball, it's their offense, right? I mean, that's typically what kind of fails first. You can't score because at their worst, right? It kind of bogs down and like, all right, PJ, please go create.
Exactly.
And
a lot of ball watching,
right. And when he can't, it's like, oh God, it's tough. I mean, there's just not a lot of places to generate offense, especially if Colby's having a bad night from from three. And so putting Dane in there, I think gives you a whole new look, right? Not that he's a perfect player. He's been prone to turnovers. Yep. But I do think overall, good passer out of the post, just commands so much attention, amazing footwork, and can finish, and get to the foul line as well. Again, defensively, obviously not your best option, but I just think he takes so much pressure off of the guards out there when he's inside, and it keeps defenses honest. I mean, Musa was just a non-guard. Like, all you had to do was just keep him from catching the ball.
And then you won that battle.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And and you might actually be okay with him even catching the ball depending on where he catches it.
Exactly.
If it's 10 feet out, you'll live. And look, credit to Musa. He's a valuable piece of this team because he brings length and shot blocking ability. And he was still engaged against UAB 9-8, off the bench.
3 of 3 from the floor, yeah.
Yeah, so credit to him. But yeah, I think just to start the games, you need more offense. And that's what Dame provides.
No doubt. And Penny did say that was a decision that he's made, for the foreseeable future. Like, Dane would be the starter from now going forward.
I mean, you can't go back now. I mean,
not after what Dane showed you in that game.
I mean, it probably should have been that way. I expected it to be that way the entire year. I expected Dane to be the starter the whole year. Of course, Maui was a good experience.
Yeah.
And so, I understand Penny's sticking with that. But yeah, man. I think it's a good move. I think it was a good strategic decision, and I think it paid dividends for Memphis clearly early and often.
And we've talked about this before, but also it goes back to Penny kind of being less buddy and more the enforcer, right? Like, he leveraged the idea of holding that carrot in front of Dane and saying, hey, you want the starting role? Like, go earn it, right? Like, go bust your ass in practice, go get rebounds, go block shots, go run the floor.
Yeah.
And once Dane did those things, then he gave it. So we didn't just give him the starting role and said, hey, it's yours to keep. I think that's another nod to Penny's growth and development.
100%. I think he's done a great job this year. That's been one of his blind spots, I think, over the years, is defining roles. He brought in Amani Bates to point guard. He's rotations have been long and short. And even last year, remember in the Rice game, he benched Javon Quinterly for Jonathan Pierre. Like, he just has not done a great job of defining those roles overall. But it does feel like this year he's turned that corner. And again, I don't think the results are accidental, man. I think the results are incredibly intentional. He picked the players that he knew would work together as opposed to just chasing the headlines. That's what I wrote about this week.
Yep.
He's done that before. He's chased the big time fish, got the headlines.
Last year,
yes.
Javon Quinterly, David Jones. And
yes, but like it wasn't a fit. It was not a Jordan Brown, it was not a fit. And this time around, yes, PJ was a great freshman at Tulsa.
Yep.
But he was definitely not a household name, right? He was not a household name in college basketball. Obviously Musa, you knew him, but he was kind of just a guy at Ole Miss, right? Dane,
semi one-dimensional, you can argue, right?
I mean, Dane, people knew Dane from that Illinois team, but he was a backup,
Yep.
So he really just did a good job of picking the complementary piece. Tyrese Hunter, he scouted him, he evaluated him, he knew that he could come in and kind of be that second, I don't want to say second fiddle because that almost sounds derogatory, but he could be that second option and be fine with that.
Yeah.
Or he could have nights where he's number one.
Yeah, where he can take that one. Yeah. Yep.
So I think Penny just did a great job overall assembling this team. Again, I'm not saying they're a champion or anything like that, but I mean, they definitely feel like if they get the seed that we think they might be able to, if they keep doing what they're doing, they definitely feel like they'll still be playing into that second weekend. And
that's a good point. You talk about seed that they can get. Penny talked about it yesterday on the radio show that obviously the goal was to get a top 4 seed, although it may not be possible based on where the metrics and stuff land at this point. He's more concerned about this team hitting its groove and finding its harmony, come late February, come early March than he is anything about seeding, because he feels that, when this team is clicking on all cylinders, it can beat almost anybody. And it's hard to argue with that, right? Based on what we've seen in Maui and elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State hasn't lost since they played Memphis.
It has not.
I mean, it's crazy. Obviously, Auburn's beating everybody. I mean, so there's no shame in losing to Auburn. But yeah, man, basically against everybody else that's, worthy competition, they have either beaten, or been right there against. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like they're live. It's just a matter of staying out of that coin flip first round game.
Yep.
Right? And then,
which is what, the 8-9?
Yeah, 8-9, 7-10. And then making sure you avoid, that 1 or 2 seed in the second round game. I mean, that's just what you can't afford, because this team deserves a chance to make a run without having
a fighting chance, yes,
to slay Goliath.
Yep.
In its second game.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's the key.
So let's end it here then. Do you think it's possible? What we're talking about is a 6 seed or better. Is
yes.
that how likely is that? Right now you got Jerry Palm, Joe Lenardi talking about Memphis as a 5 seed.
Yeah.
I think if they lose one more, that's all you can lose is one more, I think.
Yeah,
the rest of the 11
if they
to get
lose,
a 6 or better.
If they lose at UAB, that'd be a quad 2 loss. I mean,
Yeah.
that wouldn't be the end of the world,
But that'll put you at a 6 seed, I think.
I think
you're the worst 5 right now.
It probably puts you as a 6.
Yeah.
If you win out, I think you're 4 with an outside chance at the last 3.
3, you think so?
Outside
with
chance.
Yeah,
I mean, again, you're going to win. If I'm saying you win every single game the rest of the way, your metrics will improve.
What I thought was confusing, at least to me, as somebody who, has not been a net hater, not been a KenPom hater, they won by 23 against UAB. The eye test showed you that was
That's right.
an ass whooping. It was great, But the metrics barely moved. What do you think that is?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought, is it because it was at home? Is it less weight on a home
Somebody
win?
call KenPom, man.
Because when
Yeah,
you did it at
it's
FAU
weird.
and won by 28, you jumped 5, 6, 7 spots.
Exactly.
But you also have a little bit more performances in your pocket now where you've underperformed.
That weighs it, yeah.
So,
Yep.
you probably have to do this 3, 4, 5 more times, before you start to see that reflected in the metrics. I mean, you got to think, if FAU was 6 games ago, so you had a little less sample.
No, you're right.
I think that's probably what's going into it.
No, for sure. So I guess we'll see. Starting Thursday in
Yeah.
New Orleans at
Big one.
Tulane, a place that Memphis has struggled
Get
historically.
up! Get on up!
Can they exercise their demons and beat Tulane and beat them convincingly? I guess we'll find out. But I guess that's all the time we have for today. I'm Parth. That's John. Thanks for listening. You can catch all of our work at dailymemphian.com. And we will talk to y'all soon.